World Blockchain Summit team for inviting me and giving me this honor to moderate this amazing panel, to be with amazing panelists like yourself. So I will start by introducing myself. First of all, good evening. It's evening here in Dubai, my first time in Dubai as well. My name is Iman Hirawi. I love to introduce myself as a blockchain developer who not only love to code and build, amazing blockchain projects, but also care about the adoption of blockchain technology. So I founded ArabSync Blockchain to support the blockchain adoption in the Arab region and matching the Arab community with opportunities worldwide. Also, to empower more women in blockchain, Arab women in blockchain, we co-founded NoonDAO as a non-profit organization to empower more women in Web3. NoonDAO is co-founded by 4 amazing Arab ladies from 4 different Arab countries. So, first of all, let me introduce again my amazing panelists, Nikita Sachdev, I'm sorry. She's the host of CNBC Arabia's Web3 show, On the Chain, founder and CEO of Luna Media Corporation, and CEO of Cointelegraph, Mina. Welcome, Ms. Nikita. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My second panelist is Vadim Creton, I'm sorry. He is co-founder at Cointelegraph, Mina, and founding partner at Crypto Mira Capital, where he invested in more than 150 projects. Welcome, Mr. Vadim. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Just small note that Cointelegraph China, not Cointelegraph Mina. And actually, it's a very cool coincidence that we've been in the same family with Nikita for a while when she also joined the Cointelegraph family. But we just met, 2 minutes before we just met.
Mina.
Yeah, so both of us from the same family. It's cool to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And when I was checking the profiles, I was surprised. It's amazing mixture, honestly. And I will start our question today asking Nikita. Nikita, when back in late 2017, when I started in this domain, I was exploring the blockchain and what is blockchain. It's something new for me, and I was, I can say that the hook that attracted me to this domain is the potential impact of blockchain and other emerging technologies in our life. In that day, I decided I will be blockchain developer just to be part of this change. So I'm so curious to know. I know that you are a volunteer, fundraising volunteer in HOPE. The organization is called HOPE International Development Agency in Japan. And I'm so curious to know your aha moment, the hook that attracts you when you started to realize the social impact of blockchain. And if you can share with us, me and the audience, more information about this moment, that would be great.
Sure, yeah. So I think it's a great reason to get into blockchain in 2017. I also had a similar route into the world of blockchain. Actually, I was the host of Huobi Exchange back in 2017, and I would interview projects that were going to be listed on the exchange, and I had no idea what I was talking about. It felt like a different language. ICO, blah, 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 blockchain, blah, 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 crypto. I'm like, what does all of this mean? And I really felt like I had to understand it. And no matter how many articles I read, how many books I read, I could not understand it. I studied chemistry and business in school. It would just, technology just was not my thing. Finally, when I did understand it through multiple YouTube videos, I thought, you know what? My dad cannot get a Singapore residency. At the time we were living in Singapore, my dad cannot get a Singapore residency because he doesn't have a birth certificate. And he doesn't have a birth certificate because He was born in the slums of India, actually. Like he grew up he grew up in poverty, and that hospital just did not exist anymore. And I'm like, how backward does that sound? That like we rely on a document so much, and that document does not rely anymore because of inefficiency. So that's when I was like, actually, blockchain can change that. And I realized the value of it, and I started putting blockchain into actual use cases and started thinking, wow, imagine what blockchain can change. And that's when my passion grew and arose, that I need to be the bridge between the technical and the layman, and I need to allow people to understand what blockchain is in the most layman term, and that's why I started a media agency. But long story short, we have worked with a lot of charities. We've worked with Hope, like you mentioned. We also have our own foundation, Luna Foundation. And I'm proud to say we've actually educated 10 girls this year. I know 10's not a lot, but we've provided them an education for 1 year from the ages of 10 to 18, and they don't get. In India, a lot of women don't get education because they're kind of in villages. They're seen as homemakers. So, you know, when I try to think about how blockchain can kind of impact society, that birth certificate is an example. Bank accounts is an example. Identities is an example. Literally, it can impact every single industry and aspect of life that you can think of.
It's amazing because we share similar background, by the way. The first thing that attracted me to blockchain was how we can use identity using blockchain, where whatever happened to anyone, he can no longer lose his identity because of a war or a disaster, natural disaster or so. So Vadim, you have an amazing mixture of media experience and investment experience. Let me focus more in the investment part,
Sure, of course.
if you don't mind. And I just so curious to know, how do crypto VCs evaluate projects that have a high social impact? What if, and also what if these projects, you know, like I know that most of the VCs focus on the return of investment, but what if these projects has a very high social impact, but you know, less ROI?
Right. Thank you so much for the question. So first of all, I would say that invest into the crypto projects. You know, first when I entered the space, it was 2017. Everyone was talking about the blockchain. Then it turned to be crypto. Now it's Web3. So definitely, I see the developments of the industry. I see so many people coming and talking about social impact. You know. Back to 2017, I remember me and my partners was just thinking and sort of like dreaming about, the times when the big companies like, let's say Visa or JP Morgan or whatever, you just name any like Google, they can join the space. But now everyone already like on board and actually sort of doing some development, have the departments working very hardly, on the blockchain, implementing technology, implementing the currencies inside. We have the whole Facebook renamed to the Meta, right? So it's a huge difference, between now and the time when I just entered. Talking about evaluating the projects and how we invest, I mean, I don't want to say that we invest in only because the project looked nice, but of course we want to return investments for ourselves. We want to make money. This is the business. But of course, choosing between the projects, of course, the first thing we look at always, it's a team, right? So you look at the team, you understand who you are working with, who you're giving your money to. Because this money could be spent on some different, let's say, like Ponzi schemes or some sort of like shady schemes, which can, if we're talking about social impact, it can go to the bad way, right? So we're not talking about only like good ways, because yeah, technology itself, you can use technology in a good way, you can use it in a bad way as well. So for us, it's crucial, it's so important, when we give money to the projects. Plus, you also mentioned that I have a media background, right? So we have Cointelegraph China, we have other medias which we are cooperating with in Asia, which is one of the largest market in the world. And of course, we help in the projects that we invest. We give them access to the media resources for them to connect with our editorial, to pitch them, about their project. And we do understand the, responsibilities that we have here, not to allow bad projects to get in, and especially having such a good, brand and reputable brand like Cointelegraph. Of course, we do understand that it's so important. So, talking about this, of course, I mean, for me, it's important to filter, the projects first, to understand that we're giving the money to the right people. At the same time, I would say that not only social impact could be like a real use case in life. We do need to understand that right now we are still on a very early stage of the crypto, of the Web3 right now, of the owner's economy. And the thing that's like my vision, of course, I mean, it's my personal opinion that in 10 years, in 15 years, we're going to have the whole digital economy in the world, and it will be sort of like a separated between decentralized and centralized. And the centralized still will be the much bigger part rather than decentralized. What I mean by that, decentralized is like you can be anonymous, you can have your anonymous avatar, ID, you can use some sort of like protocols, decentralized exchanges, and it's okay to have it, but the part of it will be like 15%, 20%. From now, it's like hundreds of times of growth. But at the same time, centralized part where current banks, current governments, current whatever, like insurance companies, they will join the market. It will be much bigger. And still, so social impact, what we're talking about, this is about digitalization, it's about innovations, it's about bringing more and more people to the industry that we have. So basically, yeah, that's the point of investments. Give a fuel to the companies to growth. Yeah, sort of like that.
It's amazing, and also just to comment what you have said, I believe that Web3 in general is evolution, not a revolution, because we are evolving. And also, it's not about decentralization or centralization. It's about giving people more options, different options, so they can select. Back to you, Nikita. You have interviewed many amazing blockchain leaders. Personally, I watched some of your interviews, which is amazing. I was impressed, literally. And in these interviews, or even outside of these interviews, I think that you discuss some amazing ideas that has a high social impact, but maybe some of them are not well presented, or you would love to put some shade on. You would love to highlight more. So if you can elaborate in this point, and also another curious question, honestly, what are the most common things between these ideas from a social impact perspective?
Sure, yeah. So in the last 3 months, I've been very blessed to speak to some leaders in the space through CNBC. I've been obviously hosting the first ever Web3 show. And we've spoken to executives from top 100 projects to governments to just key opinion leaders in the space. And what I feel is some of the ideas that I hear about are fantastic. I think the space is just too new and still very young for it to be implemented. I think with any technology, there's a right time and place for adoption. And it's similar to what happened with, let's say, for example, Uber. If someone told you about Uber in 2001, you wouldn't get it because you didn't have, let's say, maybe you didn't have an iPhone, you didn't know what an app was, you didn't know how to download an app, let alone imagining that a random driver was going to pick you up. What about safety? All these questions would arise. You wouldn't even think that you can track the car, or there's customer service, right on. So that's an example of how technology takes time to get adopted. And I think the Web3 space is very similar. A lot has come up recently in this region about the metaverse. Recently, there was a metaverse assembly that took place where the ruler of Dubai announced that they were going to not only measure GDP, in some aspects of GDP in the metaverse, but also aim to be one of the top 10 economies for metaverse in the upcoming years. And that, I think, is a very impactful statement.
Yes.
I would love to see that being implemented. Think about, I mean, since this discussion is about social impact, if you actually put that into perspective, think how many people you could educate. Think about the fair chances that you're giving to the whole world.
Yes.
You don't need to be a trust fund kid to get into Harvard. Now you can be a genius out of, emerging country in Africa, for example, and have the same impact, same education with an Oculus, for example. And I know it still takes an Oculus, it still takes technology, there's a lot more that needs to be developed, but that's all part of the progress. And that's what I mean. In the next 5 years, I think we'll see a complete change on how Web3 as a whole, not just crypto, can affect social impact. Education is one part of it. Supply chain management. Blockchain can assist with a more transparent supply chain. There was an issue that came out a couple of years ago that in China, they were replacing rice with plastic. So some of the rice that people were eating was plastic, and they were doing it to save costs. If this rice supply chain was put on the blockchain, you would be able to identify when it's being tampered with. So that's just one example of blockchain impacting the food industry or supply chain industry, the medical industry with documents. So long story short, blockchain, metaverse, with gender equality in the metaverse, where you're not identified as male, female, any color, no race. All of this is going to impact the way the world works today. And it's not just crypto, it's metaverse, it's through NFTs, it's through all aspects of Web3.
Yes, I agree with you, especially in metaverse, like it enables developing countries to provide a high quality education with less cost. Imagine like a surgery or so, want to try, so even the cost of experience itself.
Yeah.
So thank you. So back to you, Vadim. DAO is a buzzword. And in blockchain space, nowadays, I want to say that, DAO itself, everyone is talking about DAO. I'm a big fan of DAO, honestly. But I know that, even the tool is not matured yet. Yes, it's a buzzword, but it's not mature. We need more tools. We need even regulation for DAOs. So, from an investment perspective, how do you see the future of DAO? What is the crypto VC's appetite towards DAO? And I'm not sure, honestly, what's the vision from how the VC sees DAO now, especially with DAOs with social impact.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Talking about DAOs, I couldn't say that in our portfolio it's a lot of DAO companies, to be honest. But from the middle of the last year, we had a focus on a different DAOs. We looked through many decks, which were fundraising back to that times. Honestly speaking, I think it's still quite early for the real DAOs, how probably you see it, how I see it in the long run, because in the current DAO, it's still a lot of problems like apathy of voting. People doesn't really understand how to implement themselves in the society of the DAO. What is the hierarchy? Many DAOs, they do have not a fair distribution of the tokens, especially if it's a government token, so it's still sort of like a centralized way of governing the community. Then many DAOs, they are having a little bit sort of like not focusing, sort of like a roadmap how they should be like, be developed. I would prefer, to support DAO if they have a real sort of community of people who are very passionate about what they do. At the moment, we need to create, let's say, infrastructure for the DAOs. That's exactly what we need to focus on. I mean, in the whole industry, and for me as a VC, we mostly focus on that part rather than exactly like to be a part of one DAO or to contribute to the DAO or to invest to one particular DAO. So tools for the DAO, payment roles for the DAO, how to, let's say, simplify constructors for the smart contracts for the DAOs. That's exactly the thing, what I'm really looking for to invest, rather than exactly, let's say, like support one ABC DAO or whatever. But at the same time, I think that we have very interesting cases through the recent bull market. For example, majority of the good NFT collections, they are having sort of DAO behind that, because it's a community, right? So utility, majority, especially PFP collections for the NFTs, they having sort of like a community behind that. That's exactly the DAO, how it looks like at the moment, right? So developers DAO is also something interesting. Or investments DAO is also interesting for me. I would definitely eager to become LP for maybe a couple of such DAOs in the next let's say couple years, because I do believe for the next bull run we're gonna have sort of like increase of amounts of DAO and attention to the DAOs itself. But so we should understand that. Structure of the like how people cooperate. That's probably the exact the purpose of the DAOs. At the same time, many people saying, okay, probably governments of the whatever any country will be the DAO. At the moment, probably I'll be more pessimistic about that, because government, they don't really want to lose the power, right? So they will probably like want to hold it and keep it like in that way. But for metaverse, for the Web3, that's the only native way of governing, actually, because when you have governance token, when you understand that the rules are fair in the DAO, you can vote, you can participate, you can stake, you can have whatever, like, some yield or bonus or grants from your DAO. That's definitely the way how you can integrate your life inside of DAO. I do believe that for next generation of people, that would be the very organic and native way how to govern itself on the social level, on the, let's say, like a normal level of communicating people. Just for instance, I have a kid, he's 8 years old, and he's playing a lot of different games. So for him, these tokens, which are not tradable tokens, but in-game tokens, it's something the same, having the same value as some real things.
You think the next generation will understand the value of DAOs and all these digital assets better than us, this generation?
For sure. I teach him as well. I give him ability to buy tokens. So every week he has a small amount of, like, let's say, like money, which I give to him, and we have a like agreement that half of this money he gives back to me. I double it, and we invest together to different tokens.
It's amazing that you are trying to, educate those like young kids about the financial value of blockchain and all these stuffs, because we have here in the Arab region, I can tell you, like the financial illiteracy we are suffering from. Thank you for doing that.
Right. So I mean, and he's talking about the same things with the kids his age, and he can have an equal conversation with me about sandbox token, about decentralized token. He understands how it works. So for him, having governance token or whatever token of the company, exactly the first time, I remember the first token he bought was the sandbox. And he told me, I own part of this company.
Wow.
So for him, having a token of the company, it's really sort of like be a part of some sort of like a community. Even he cannot touch it at the moment because he's still too small. He's only 8. But in 3-4 years, when he will be 14, that's going to be totally different thing. And it's not only like my example. I do believe that many examples in this audience and behind this audience, we have the same things.
Amazing. We are running out of time, but I still have some questions. Nikita, we have seen many NFT projects, interesting projects with amazing social impact. But in your opinion, how do you see the future of NFT for sustainable project, and up to which level it can help in eliminating barriers? You know, like even like narrow down the gap, generation and gender gap. Somehow it's like touch what Vadim has mentioned now.
Right, yeah. So like Vadim was saying how his son understands exactly, Web3 to his level. It's definitely because of like the gaming industry has helped that a lot. The gaming industry already has NFTs incorporated. It's in the metaverse. They already have in-game tokens. So they're actually more equipped and familiar with the ecosystem as sometimes the older generation. So I'm not surprised that when you're speaking to someone younger, they actually understand it, and it's going to be part of their everyday lives. Our children, our grandchildren will be talking about it, and at least everyone here will be a cool grandparent and will understand what it's all about. But in terms of NFTs, I think in the last couple of years, there's definitely been a lot of hype around it. Not to say that there haven't been any good use cases, but more so, I think, we've seen NFTs come out. They've grown communities. Of course, fundamentals like, okay, you can meet communities and get together. In my opinion, I've seen a lot of hype. And that's been through, I think, some of the JPEGs that have come out. It's great to see that art is preserved on the blockchain, but NFTs are more than art. And I think some of the good use cases that I've seen are, for example, property deeds as NFTs. But when it comes to social impact, what we could see as NFTs is, as I mentioned previously, birth certificates, identities, passports. These need to be NFTs. And I think that's when the older generation will come into the space, is when there's actually a use case that is applicable and makes sense to them. I was speaking to my friend yesterday who said that his grandparent moved to the UAE a couple of years ago and never got the UAE passport. Just because there was some political unrest between Palestine, where he's from, and the UAE.
Yeah.
And it would have been so amazing if we actually had the blockchain back then, because it wouldn't have to rely on politicalness. Everything is kind of recorded. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge future for NFTs. And that's what I mean by putting everything on the blockchain. That mostly would be through NFTs. But I think that it'll take, again, a couple of years for us to see some use case, and maybe we need to kind of calm down on the hype.
Even the infrastructure itself for blockchain,
yeah.
still in early stage.
Like just an example, like when Tiffany's recently did the CryptoPunks partnership, that actually, I believe there was like some disclaimer at the bottom that actually gives your CryptoPunk, almost gives it away. And I feel like that's part of like the hype, where people actually don't really understand what the value in partnership entails. So looking forward to seeing some better and stronger use cases in the NFT space.
Great. Vadim, in 2 minutes, because we are running out of time now.
Sure.
If you have any tips and tricks for startups, Web3 startups, that focus on social impact, tips and tricks.
You mean have we invested some projects who have social impact?
Like, if I have a startup that focuses on social impact, if you can give those youth any tips and tricks to consider.
Yeah, I take it from probably a little bit another angle, because we invest in projects in Web3 itself, and for me, the whole thing is a social impact, right? So through the last years, I invested so many projects that it's even hard to remember each of them. But at the same time, I know that the most impact and the most, let's say, like influence took from DeFi projects. Even though right now it's a lot of hype around NFT, I agree with Nikita, and a lot of hype about metaverse, all of these sort of things. But cryptocurrency itself, it's very organic and native and equalized to money, to sort of like thing which you use to exchange commodities between each other. So decentralized finance that probably will have the biggest impact, which is not actually such visible how we probably can compare it with a metaverse or NFT when you see some popular athlete promoting something and it's a lot of hype, it's a lot of Instagram noise about it. But DeFi will be implemented in each of our mobile phone in some period of time, and that's exactly the social impact I mean. That probably you will use the technology which is implemented under the hood, but not exactly like what you should do. So the next generation of the wallets, the next generation of the decentralized finance protocols won't really bother you with seed phrase, with probably some complicated things, which is really hard for people like older generation or for people who's not really in the technology. They just focus on their own life. So that's probably the thing. What I really mean by the social impact, by making the world, transactions, finance world more secure, but at the same time through the just making it more organically under the hood, so people just don't really need to be involved in the process too much.
Amazing. In 1 minute, each of you, if you have any closing remarks, start with Nikita. Closing remarks for blockchain and social impact.
Yeah, no, just to touch base on what Vadim was saying with even investment, because we also have a small VC, and I think that cryptocurrency and mining in particular might not be the most impactful in the terms of sustainable energy. Now with the Ethereum merge, maybe a little bit more, but when it comes to other aspects of social impact, I think that kind of outdoes the bad. Like the good aspects of social impact kind of outdoes the bad, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like what Vadim says, it might not be directly that yes, it's contributing to, let's say, climate control, but the other aspects that it is contributing to is so impactful, like banking the unbanked, DeFi. There are kids in Philippines that are making more money from GameFi than their parents do. So I think this is where the true power behind it lies.
Amazing. Vadim?
Right. First of all, my closing remarks should start with I was so happy to sit between two beautiful girls and talk about social impact in blockchain and crypto. And actually, the main thing, I think we have discussed a lot today, and I'm grateful to be here. The main thing, what I would say, that through all these years, I personally, and together with the team even more, we looked through 6,000, maybe 7,000 decks of different projects. And the most painful part, when you look at the project, sometimes is like, why you guys need blockchain. So sometimes people think too much, use the blockchain, use the cryptocurrency, use the technology itself where it's really needed. So that's probably the main thing. And the social impact also comes from that part, right? So use it, for example, like Nikita just said, for inside of the games, creating the special community and guilds for, let's say, Philippine kids or whatever, how you can talk about other emerging markets. But the thing is that use it where it's really needed. So that's probably one of my closing remarks. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your amazing thoughts and for your participation today. My closing remarks is blockchain domain is not only for money. There are so many opportunities out there. I always say my community is not only about money, it's about impact. And at the end of this amazing panel, I would love to thank my panelists, amazing panelists, Nikita and Vadim, and thank the World Blockchain Summit team for giving us this awesome opportunity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.